And you might need a bit of practice in order to pull it off, just to kind of do it consistently. I think you should repeat this action enough times where you feel comfortable broadly grouping sentences into similar categories. Okay? All right. I'm going to take this one, move this up here. All right. All right. So having done something like that is very helpful. Okay? And again, I'm not asking you forcibly to label it at this stage of the assignment. I mean, ultimately, you do want to employ your knowledge that you learned from structure of English and then start labeling it. Okay? Start saying, okay, subject, verb, object order. Dependent clause comes first. Rhetorical questions. That sort of thing. So you're basically using linguistic meta-language, okay, to do the labeling, okay. That will require a bit more energy on your part. You are highly suggested, being that you are going into ESL, to know linguistic meta-language. So here's your place to practice it, okay. All right. What else can we start saying about the characteristics of this text? Okay. Well, there seemed to be a fair amount of pronoun use. Okay, and that's something you can comment on. The question is the pronoun use any more than we would find in some other kind of text? Okay. I think, by virtue of the fact that we are in history talking about people, these pronouns are constantly referring to people or somebody we identify as personified. Okay. The fact of the matter is, though, look, this she is pertaining to an inanimate skeleton that happens to have a name that we've given it. Okay. So it's not a woman, and it's likely that a new reader would be expecting, they'll know the word she, but they'll expect, and also they might also know the name Lucy, okay, as somebody female, but they might have a difficult time, unless somebody helps explain it to them, that we're talking about an inanimate object that's been named and personified. So that's something that is unique to archaeology, I would think, paleontology, and history. Whereas if we got into a chemistry book, we're not going to see so much she. Okay, we're going to see a lot more it's. Okay, therefore, one of the reading challenges is having learners be able to attribute where the pronoun comes from. She is Lucy, is that. Okay? Once again, we go back to grounding. Anyway, back to sentence structure and such. Actually moving beyond sentence structure. There are lexical characteristics that are interesting. I find it interesting that within 250 words, 240 words, the word yet is used at least twice. In fact, let me find. Yeah, 2 times. Okay? Now, this is something that is going to cause a problem for a learner. Okay? Because yet is a very abstract word. Okay? And is the yet that they probably know is, did you get there yet? Meaning like already. And in this case, we are not using the definition of already. Okay, so this creates a challenge for learners. And it also seems to be characteristic of a history text. And so we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of these yet phrases? Okay. Well, it seems that the function, if we're going to use Scheffer-Grell's term, of yet phrases is that it is providing information that is exceptional, somewhat surprising, or contrary to a belief that is set up before. So if we look at this as a two-part sentence, okay, and this sentence happens to start off with a canonical word order, okay, subject and then verb and then your complement, okay, or direct object, except that it's the verb to be, so it's not really a direct object, it's a complement. We have this yet phrase afterwards, okay, as a dependent clause. This sets up the expectation that her softball-sized brain was larger than a chimpanzee's, and that causes one to think even superficially, maybe she is human. And then the next clause sets up the opposite expectation, or it says takes down the expectation that the previous clause set up. Okay, and so functionally, what you have here is a takedown, if you will, where it is contradicting. All right, and then we look at this sentence, and here it's a sentence all on itself. All right, so what we would have done is looked into the original text and said, okay, here we have a yet sentence. It's not even a yet clause. Where did it come from and what preceded it? All right. Well, interestingly, it seems to have started an entirely new paragraph. All right. I find it very interesting that every paragraph seems to start. I realize that I'm digressing a little bit. Let me go back. So we look at this and we say, well, what was the primary expectation or concept that was being argued beforehand that this is now contradicting? Okay, so the idea here is that the paragraph beforehand says ape-like, and then we have this contradicting statement that says human. All right. So we now see that this is what the function of yet is, and we see that the history text seems to be setting up propositions and then I'll call them contradictions, or contradicting ideas. Okay, and so we see this rhetorical effect that's happening more than once, and if it's happening more than once, that's a pattern, and that's something you're going to have to teach. Okay. We also see in the same way that part of the rhetorical pattern is to throw in these questions. Okay, so that questions that the reader is kind of compelled, at least psychologically, to answer. And so this text is setting up a discourse or a dialogue with the reader by asking questions and getting the reader to psychologically answer. All right, setting up propositions, and then which would compel the reader to believe, and then creating some kind of changing idea that forces the reader to reconsider. And so we find that this is a pretty dynamic text. Okay. Now, you might find other phrases like such as, and according to, and based on, and those are basically little lexical patterns that may be more or less present in a text. Okay, I believe you have an article called Lexical Bundles, and each text is going to, the Lexical Bundle article is by, I believe, Biber and Conrad, or Conrad et al. And basically having us look at, instead of grammatical structures, having us look at little groups of lexical words that are pivot points or focal points in the sentence that set up logical relationships between ideas in the text, or that set up relationships between the narrator and the reader. Okay? And you need to look for those in your texts in order to characterize them. All right? Anyway, that's all for now. Hopefully this will get you started and you'll find it useful. I'd appreciate any feedback actually on any of these videos, or if you have any questions with any of these videos, I'd appreciate that too. It'll help me help you better. All right.